Talking about a football team that didn't get to the Super Bowl in the 80s, one of the best teams was the Los Angeles Rams. It's kind of funny because Saquon Barkley almost broke Eric Dickerson's record. And that Rams teams, which doesn't get talked about, you know how people always say they don't remember runner up or finishes. I do, because those were some really good teams. I can still see Flipper Anderson running crazy against the Giants in the playoffs. Had some crazy numbers. Before the greatest show on turf, that Rams team was pretty special. Jim Everett had a pretty good run. Now, most people know Jim Everett for being called Chrissy Everett with that whole thing with Jim Rome when before Will Smith and Chris Rock, that was a two-piece special live on TV. I'll never forget that. How Jim Rome still got a show to this day. I don't even understand it. But anyway, we get into the subject. That Rams team just happened to go against two of the best teams in that era. Why they didn't make the Super Bowl? Losing to the 49ers in the end of the 80s and losing to the Bears in the mid 80s. And two of the best. John Robinson did everything, but he had to go against. And see, that was back in an era when I always talk about the 80s in sports. Teams had identity. Teams had presence. Teams had character. That Rams team was right on the cusp, but they had to go through the 49ers or the Bears. There was always something in the way because anybody else, they was beaten. And that's the sad part when we talk about past eras because the woulda, coulda, shoulda, a parity of having balance, and if you did, things may have been different. But people don't, and so often than not, unless you're a diehard fan of said team or you go into it, you're not going to go back in time and go, oh, this team was so good. They were so close. You're not going to, it doesn't work like that because people's attention spans and their mind spans, they're not going to have romanticize it like that. We want them to, they won't. We think they would, they won't. Because all you ever hear about now Sean McVay just passed out to John Robinson's record for winning his coaching Rams history, which is kind of hard to believe because the Rams had a lot of success. And you got to remember all it, but different era, different time. But, every time you talk about the Rams, it always comes back to mainly Eric Dickerson and what he did in 84. That's all you ever hear about because when he broke OJ's record. But you never hear about, the team. And they were a legit team. I mean, in hindsight, just thinking back to it, they were one of the best teams to not get to the Super Bowl. We don't talk about that Rams team because obviously I would probably tell you the San Diego Chargers with Eric Coryell. That was amazing that they didn't do it with what they had, with the talent. But either the cold, the elements, something got in the way. They were different teams, but that Rams team definitely comes to mind because when they finally broke through with Kurt Warner and them, it had been many, many years of frustration and timing. So, they had get to the Super Bowl. Vince Ferragamo sitting losing to Pittsburgh, but you know, with what they had in the 80s, the run they had in the 80s, yeah. So they're one of the best NFL teams that did make it. And everything is like I said before, all people talk about is Eric Dixon because he broke the record. They don't really talk about how good that Rams team was in the 80s because the 49ers were so dominant. And there were other storylines, but they were one of the best teams of that era. So anyway, please hit like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands, keep your mind clear, watch out for another. Share it if you like, and hit that membership because when you do requests like this come true, stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out. Peace.